Welcome to a video review from theplayersaid.com. My name is Grant. Today I am just giving you some of my thoughts on a newer solitaire game. I think this came out about 6 months ago, give or take. The game is called 20th Air Force, and it's a solo game that deals with the strategic bombing campaign against Japan during World War II. From 1944 to 1945. You can see the cover here. The publisher is Fortress Games. The designer is Bob Phaneuf. Probably mentioned or said his name wrong. But this is actually a very cool little game. I have now played this. This is actually in the middle of my third game. And I've actually had it set up for about 2.5 or 3 weeks. I'll play a turn or two here and there and then come back to it. So I found the rules to be a little bit lacking. I felt like they were lacking in clarity and they were lacking in some examples. Consequently, there were parts that I struggled with. But to be honest, that was about my only major concern with the game. And you might be saying, your only major concern? Well, rules are one of the most important things, period. But through playing it, trial and error, doing things, working on it, I was able to figure it out, and things made sense to me as I kind of got further and further in the process. Let me turn a light on really quickly. But, overall, this is a really solid game. We also, and this game was provided by the publisher for us to review. He also sent us a copy of the European theater game called 8th Air Force. Alexander has that. He's working on playing that and doing a review. So let me go ahead and move the title. And I'm using a new camera stand today. We have, it's a very cool little setup. It has kind of a ball that has a hinge on it, and I can get these really close-up shots of the board and then move that around. So I'm really excited to try it out, so I apologize if my camera work isn't that great at this time. So once again, strategic bombing campaign of Japan, and you can see it's really focused on the main island. Not ironically, but interestingly enough, I lived in Japan in 1992, 1993 for almost 2 years. I was a missionary for my church. I speak Japanese. I'm not as fluent as I was, but I actually lived in the Kansai area, which is this area right around here. I lived in Kobe, Osaka, and some of North Kyoto-fu, which is kind of up here on the map. So very familiar with Japan, love it. It's a great country, very interesting culture, and I enjoyed it. Consequently, I have a great interest in Pacific theater of World War II games, whether they be two-player, solo, whatever it might be. I've always found them interesting. But once again, here's a look at the map, and you will notice the main islands. It does not have Hokkaido, which is the northernmost island. It also does not show Okinawa here to the left. That's off map. But you can see the board, and I might go ahead and pull back just a little bit so you can see these numbers. The board is divided into these 5 areas. Here you can see numbered 1 through 5. And those are in essence bombing runs where you are focused on the cities, the infrastructure, the major cities and minor cities, and then the infrastructure in those areas. So you're ultimately gonna have to bomb all 5 of these areas over the course of a game. And my first play, I did absolutely horribly. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't necessarily understand the strategy at all, and really, really struggled with that. There are basically 16 turns, so you're going to have to do this fairly quickly. You don't have a lot of time to dawdle. You're going to have to get set up. You're going to have to get going. You're going to have a little bit of luck at the beginning, and hope your planes don't get shot down. You have these squadrons. Here, let me go ahead and show you this. So this is a B29 Bomber Group, and you'll notice I have some counters placed underneath them. Those kind of represent the overall number of planes. So this group here can actually take 2 different hits before it is destroyed. So this one counter really acts as, for lack of a better word, hit points. Here I have this bomber group that has two attached squadrons, I guess you could call it. So it has a lot of hit points. You'll notice over here in these groups, some of my planes have been hit and destroyed. So for instance, this B29 group doesn't have any extra hit points. If these things get destroyed, that's not good for you. They go to your either return to base box, or I'm going to move it over here. You're going to put them in the, where's the destroyed box? The destroyed box over here, and you're going to have to use your technology points to rebuild those and bring them back into the battle. So one of the most important parts of the game, particularly early, is figuring out how to protect your planes from the enemy. You will notice that there are kamikazes and Japanese, not just kamikazes, but these are Japanese Air Force that are defending the islands, the different sections of those islands. They have a combat strength. The S here denotes that this is an at-start unit, and then they get extra units as the game goes on. For instance, here's one, a Japanese unit that came in round 3, and it had kind of a depth marker or a strength marker that was attached to it. What you're going to do is, when you're doing a bombing run, you're in essence going to roll on a CRT. Let me pull that over here in just a minute. You're going to roll on a CRT. They're going to do a certain number of hits to you, and then you can do a certain number of hits to them with your escorts and your guns. And then if you make it through, you're going to continue to a target, which will have anti-aircraft. There's also a marker. Where's that marker? There is a marker that's going to move around the board, and it's kind of a random die roll, and that's going to add a +2 anti-aircraft fire to your different targets. So if ultimately you're bombing Osaka, it has an AA of 3. If this +2 unit was there, and then you're going to have to kind of fight against those, and you're going to lose some bombers, and then you'll ultimately get to drop your bombs. This is kind of a simple, it's not a bucket of dice game. You're literally going to total up your combat factors. Let me go ahead and pull this over here. Sorry. This is the CRT I was referencing, air combat factors and the combat results. You're going to roll 6-sider on these, so you can see that is associated with these different groups, and then those results are either destroyed or returned to base when they attack you. One of the other very interesting things, you'll notice this interception here. There are 2 different types of bombing runs. You can do an area bombing, which is a little more effective because you can do a little bit more damage, but you're going to get intercepted a lot easier, take more losses, and ultimately if you do too much of that, you're going to be whittled down so much. In fact, I think in my first game, I want to say you start with 6 or 8. Maybe it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6. It's 5. I think I got down to 2. I just had a really bad go of it. So I didn't have the power, and that game ultimately ended very badly for me. The other type of bombing is this high altitude precision, and it's a little higher. You're going to go for a target, and all your hits are going to be placed on that target. The other thing I wanted to show you while we're talking about bombing runs is these are the damage trackers. And you'll notice there are different types, like let's look at Nagoya here. There's air production, which is their capacity to create fighters, Japanese fighters, ultimately, that can come out when they get shot down. There are numbers you can see. You're going to do a certain amount of hits, and you're going to move these markers down. When they reach 0, they're ultimately destroyed. They can be rebuilt. With the Japanese industry, they can rebuild. But you can see there's air production, there's oil production, infrastructure, which is kind of what is used to rebuild, and then there's housing. So all 4 of those are going to take hits over the game. If you look here at Nagoya, it's, I'm trying to think what, yeah, see, this marker got moved. I was about 50% destroyed with it because the infrastructure is down, the housing is down to 0, and those can't be rebuilt. Once they're destroyed and totally destroyed, you move them off the board and they cannot be rebuilt. So you can see I'm around 50% to demolishing and destroying Nagoya. And your ultimate goal is to all 6 of these major cities, Kobe, Osaka, Nagoya, Yokohama, Kawasaki, and Tokyo, you're trying to destroy those to win that game. Then you have to hit minor cities. Minor cities are those here in these green type boxes: Hiroshima, Himeji, Akashi, Matsuyama, etc. You can see there's 3 or 4 in each section, so you got a lot of different targets. One of the other very cool things, I'm going to actually go ahead and pull the turn record track over to show you. And there are way better videos out there that will describe how to play this game a lot better than I am right now. But as you progress in the game, you're going to start to have special bombing runs that you have to accomplish. You got to remember, the strategic bombing campaign really was a backdrop to the various island hopping campaigns, the ultimate invasion of Okinawa, which is Operation Olympic. And you have to kind of work towards getting those things accomplished. And you're going to be given certain objectives. Here they're listed. You can see bombing campaigns. You've got mine laying, kamikaze bases, ports, and then Olympic preparation. So occasionally throughout the game, based on the turn record track and the calendar, it might tell you you have to bomb a certain number of ports, or you have to take out some mine laying operations, or do Olympic bombing or Olympic prep. And you're going to have to bomb those things, so you can't solely focus on your ultimate targets in these different areas. Really liked that aspect of the game because it added in some variety. Now, they are standard. So for instance, let me go back to that. Sorry. If you look up here at the top, and I have to turn it, these different denotions, ML is mine laying, KB is kamikaze bases. So when those come up, you have to do those missions. You can't ignore them. So they don't change, which I thought, it would have been kind of cool if maybe those would have been a random die roll on a table or a chart, and that would have changed a little bit because that became kind of anticipatory, and I knew, that's going to happen next round. Well, maybe that's real life. Maybe they actually did know ahead of time, and it wasn't a big deal. For the game side of it, I think that should have maybe been a little more randomized. I thought that would have made a little more fun. If you ever don't do those missions and don't do well at them, you can see there's defeat boxes. So if you ignore them, this is going to continue to build. There's a marker. I don't have the marker over there. It's going to build up, and once it reaches 5, you're going to lose. You can lose the game if any one of these reach that defeat box and is not rectified by the end of that turn that it was required. You also lose if you don't destroy all major cities and minor cities as objectives. So there's a lot of different options that you've got to think about, plan for, and get done. So in that aspect and respect, I really liked this game because it required me to prioritize, set some goals, gave me a little variety about how I did it, but ultimately there were things that were set up to cause me difficulty, like those different bombing runs that did nothing to benefit what I was trying to do. One of the other cool things, and here I'm gonna move it over here, and you may be asking yourself, why is this such a schizophrenic review? Well, it's just an interesting game, and there's a lot to it. I'm just trying to give you a basic understanding of what the game is. Here is kind of some technologies over here, which is a very cool part of the game. You can see there are counters. So this is an improved bombing. What's going to happen is these are going to be randomized by a die roll up in these major cities. There, you can see there's one here. Let's flip that over. It's bomb training. And it's on the air production in Tokyo. But they're going to be placed randomly. And once you destroy that associated area in that city, you're going to obtain that. And then you're going to put this on here to remind yourself. And then you're going to get that benefit. Some of those are, the incendiary bombs, you can see listed those there. Those help you with housing, to destroy housing more quickly. I've actually done a really good job in destroying almost all the housing. Actually, some of these markers I think ended up ultimately getting moved. But I've done a really good job of targeting these, rolling well, doing what I needed to do, and getting there where I need to. Let's go over here to the chart because I wanted to show you the technology. Where is that? Here it is. It's right here. This is a part that I wish ultimately was a little deeper. I felt like it was a very cool thing, but it kind of fell a little bit flat for me because I felt like it was just, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe a somewhat of a sideshow, and should have been more integrated and given me more options. You're going to start with a certain amount of technology points. When you get those, you unlock those things, you're going to gain research points. You're also going to gain different research points per turn based on where you are on this side of the research track. And you're going to have to develop these things: training, recon, incendiaries. And then you got the A-bomb. In this game, I have only trained, I think, one level of the A-bomb. And the A-bomb ultimately is used to completely obliterate a city. And it's very important, particularly to get done by the late war, so that you can use that weapon on the few cities that are remaining. If you have not gotten to that point, you're going to have a real tough time because you're going to start running out of aircraft. The resistance for the Japanese, the air that they have to fight you with, also reduces. But if you don't get that A-bomb ready to go, it's going to be very, very hard. You can see here at the bottom, ultimately you can gain 2 bombs per turn if you get to the highest level of research. And that's important because you're going to need those in your last 2 to 3 turns to really make those final few cities completely destroyed so that you can win the game. So that's the technology track. Also up here, and you probably can't see it really well, but this is kind of those different focus areas: air production, oil, infrastructure, and housing. Housing's not listed. Air production, oil, and infrastructure. And you can see they have these sliding tokens, and then they're going to give a various modifier here to the left, whether it's to interception rolls, which are very important. I think we talked about that very briefly. The ability for the Japanese to repair infrastructure. Here at this level, they're losing 2 points, so that's going to basically take away a fighter or so for them to get back or rebuild certain stuff. Air production is the fighter, sorry. But I liked this part of the game because it gave me some goals that I needed to work on to ultimately whittle away the Japanese and their forces and their cities. So you can see there's actually a lot to this game. I think it's very well done. The main problems I had with it were those rules, and the rule book is actually not very, I think it's about 14 pages. 14, yeah. There are 14 pages, and then you have some optional rules and designer notes. But some of the detail, I think this needs like a second edition or some further clarification just so I can better understand some of these areas, from the game setup to different elements and aspects. I felt like the one part that I had an extremely difficult time getting, I'm not sure I ever got it in my first game, I didn't really get it until my second game, was this concept of the bombing campaigns and how it worked. So, what areas do I have to bomb, and what are the actual penalties? It took me a while to figure that out. But all in all, I thought this was a very fun game. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I am in, well, I moved my marker. I think I was in turn 5 or 6 of my third game, and I've done pretty well. I feel like I have done very well. I've managed to keep, I can show you here, I have a lot of bombers. In fact, enough that I can really focus. I have 5 bombers going in here to finish off Kobe. That's more than likely I'm going to finish it off. Kobe is pretty damaged. Infrastructure's down, housing's down. I need to get their oil and air production there, and then they'll be destroyed. Actually, it looks like some of my markers got moved. I think my kids were messing with this. But when I have 5 bombers, I'm going to roll a die, and then I'm going to do 5 hits to that area. On the higher altitude bombing, the main difference is I can choose what I'm going to hit. The area bombing, it's kind of the crapshoot. I'm rolling a die. So you really want to be high altitude because you get a little more control. But here you can see I have basically 4 different groups of fighters all going for these areas 1, 2, 3, and 4. I have not focused much on area 5, but there are not major cities in area 5. They are just a bunch of minor cities off here to the left. So there you go. That is 20th Air Force. It is a very cool game. I really enjoyed it. I thought the graphic design, while it may not be the best, I think it's very functional. I think it works very well, leads the game to be very playable. The one thing I didn't like about the production, and I'll show you here, let me move that camera back up. And this would be a great game if I wanted to do a playthrough. I feel like it would be very good. You can see these markers. So this is the percentage of complete destruction, and this is for Yokohama. If you look here, there are 4 different categories: 100%, 75%, 50, 25%, and then there is 0. So this marker, if you are at 100%, which every city starts at 100%, you're to the left, and the arrow, you can see that arrow on the right side of the marker, is pointing to the box where the current level is. It became a little bit of a hassle. I felt like when I was moving this, I bumped that, and I really had to focus and look to make sure I got those numbers back to where they were. I felt like they tried to do a very unique way to track those, and I'm not sure it worked the way that I thought it would or should. Maybe they should have used cubes. Maybe there should be a track with some I don't know. This just didn't really work for me. I felt like it was a little clunky. Now, by the third game, I was not having anywhere near the trouble that I had the first play. I had figured out how to do those things and really was able to play it much easier. So anyway, overall, fun game, enjoyed it. I'm glad we had a chance to play it. I'm glad that we were provided these copies, because I think this is a very neat game. I think you have to buy this off of Amazon, which is linked with their website. Once again, Fortress Games. But a very cool game, enjoyed it. Like I said, played it 3 times. I will definitely keep this one in my collection because I don't have a lot of kind of that strategic bombing campaign in the Pacific Theater. Don't have a lot of solo games on that aspect. So it's pretty cool. It's very different. And I enjoyed taking it out for a spin. So well done, Fortress Games. I think this is a solid one. Try to get a copy of this. I will say they're a little bit on the expensive side. It is a polybag game, but the counters are very nice. The map is kind of a thick cardstock. All of the play aids are thick cardstock. They're not going to wear out. You can see they're in very good shape, even though I've used them and quite a bit. They're cardstock. So it's worth the money because I think it's generally well produced. I would love to see a graphic artist get a chance to maybe improve upon this, but I think, once again, it's functional. I can tell where the areas are. The tracks are used very well, these bombing tracks. You know where your planes are sitting and where they're going. You can do things the way you need to do. So, yeah, very cool. I enjoyed it. So that's a look at the game. Hope you enjoyed the review. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you've played the game, let me know what you think of it. There are other reviewers. Wayne Hansen is one that have done a little bit more content on this, and you can check them out. But I wanted to give you my thoughts because I think it's a very interesting exercise. So thanks for watching. I've been Grant for the Player's Aid.